Welcome to the Steve Reeve Podcast with the best moments from the past week and a few things that didn't make it to air. Monday.
There's a new prime minister, or, it's kind of imminent, it's kind of figured out. But also an election practically imminent. I have to feel that it is, but we'll see. We shall see. Of course, there's a lot of people that don't quite understand, I think, the Canadian government and the systems in place. But yes, we do have a new prime minister that wasn't directly elected, but that's because we elected the Liberal Party, and then the leader of that party is the leader of the nation and the prime minister. And so that's why Mark Carney is now prime minister based on just a Liberal Party vote. But there's very likely going to be a federal election to follow that up. Stay tuned. The most interesting part, though, was seeing Jean Chrétien detail a few times in the history of Canada that we've had, shall we say, tense moments with our friends down south, and came out still strong and free. And honestly, just seeing Chrétien himself, the irony that we don't have 90-year-olds serving in active government, but we have one that seems sharp enough to dance circles around half of the U.S. Congress. I don't say this to be ageist or cruel or anything, but we have a former prime minister who stumbled between the jumps from English to fluent French and back, giving wisdom for the future. Meanwhile, they've got people sundowning during interviews who are, still making policy.
It's time for Cruz Music News with Steve Reeve.
Diving into some headlines this morning, there's an opportunity to help Gene Simmons out on tour. He's going to be doing a little bit of a tour in the near future, and fans can expect the opportunity for an experience which will see them be one of the roadies, basically personal assistant and band roadie for the day, to the tune of $12,495 US, in addition to the ticket for the show itself. Some people might like to have the opportunity to get paid for their labor, but to be fair, I don't think it's going to be a glorified position, and there's also a chance to have a meal with Simmons and then also be introduced to everybody on stage during the show. It's an experience. Jack White had an experience with the students of Oxford University when he was able to do a very small and intimate Q&A session. And it was earlier this month. There was a number of live shows that are coming, and he's kind of promoting them. He's in the area for it, and was able to talk to the students about the simplicity of the White Stripes and the unexpected connection that he made while pursuing what was just, he called truth, musical truth. He wanted to be a drummer. That's what he was most passionate about at first, but what connected with people was his work with the guitar, and that changed the trajectory of his life and career. Very cool. Would have loved to have been in the audience for that. Hans Zimmer is calling out the Oscars just a little bit. He was asked about it and not, unprompted, but he was not qualified to have his score for Dune Part 2 be in contention for the Oscars for this year, just simply because it used elements from the first part. And there's a line saying something about sequels, franchises from any media, 20%, blah, blah, blah. On the Happy, Sad, Confused podcast, he said, you know what? It's not a sore point. It's just such a stupid point. It's not a sequel. It's just the continuation. Why would I write new character themes? Go off, Hans. Let them know how you feel.
You're listening to the Steve Reeve Podcast from 100.5 Cruz FM.
I've got a secret. Something that I can share that I think might help out. My new secret to not having the time changing by 1 hour, throwing my whole day into an entire tailspin. Yeah, it's all too easy to happen. It really can sneak up on you, potentially stretching into multiple days of biological confusion. Just not looking at the clock at all most of the day. That's really the secret. That's what I was up to. Or really, since you kind of see the time every time you grab your phone, just not caring about what time it is, not absorbing it. And I wasn't even really intentionally doing this yesterday, but I was. I was like, I don't care what time it is. It's time change day. I don't care. And by the evening, it just felt like evening. Weird. You're welcome for the advice. Of course, after the point of being at all useful. You are guaranteed your passport within 6 weeks, or it will be fully refunded. Yeah, that was announced on Friday, I guess. I missed it until today, but Now I know, following years of really slow, log-jammed service and a whole bunch of anxious, hopeful travelers, maybe some even with tickets in hand or in, digital wallet, the expected wait time is actually 20 business days, which is less. But the new policy and I guess, they bolstered up resources. They're effectively ensuring that you will have your passport within 30 business days or it's free. Sounds great for a passport, but that would be a terrible promotion for ordering a pizza.
Tuesday.
What restaurant chains are safe?
Boston Pizza, New York Fries. Basically, if there's an American city in the name, it's probably Canadian.
Probably. I've got a friend he's into graphic design, and he decided to start, just as a gag, with the heightened tensions and the trade war going on, to take American companies but make them Canadian sounding. And, like Canadian apparel. It's just off the top of my head. Thought it was hilarious, but then we were thinking about, what are some Canadian companies that already have American names, but they are Canadian, or at least, main ownership percentages are held in Canada. Pretty much all that I found, I'm sure there are more, but they were all restaurants. Boston Pizza, Montana's, New York Fries, some of the top. Those are maybe the biggest chains as far as I perceive, but that's far from the end of the list. St. Louis Bar and Grill, Lone Star Texas Grill, California Sandwiches, New Orleans Pizza. I guess if you're from America, it's New Orleans, but Eastside Mario's representing some of New York, and Bourbon Street Grill as well, which we know down in Bourbon Street of West Edmonton Mall, at least, if not in other locations. That really does make this recent This Hour Has 22 Minutes sketch just all that much more hilarious. It's accurate.
What restaurant chains are safe?
Boston Pizza, New York Fries. Basically, if there's an American city in the name, it's probably Canadian. Cheetos?
No.
Hawkins.
I like my cheesies soft.
There is no time for soft cheesies.
The Australians, well, they are out of control, simply put. Out of control, completely unhinged. The Australian pizza chain Bubba Pizza has offered an abomination that both the purists and the pineapple people will share in their hatred of. You are united. Once more, oranges on pizza. Specifically, a smoked ham, orange chunks, and mozzarella pizza. And this comes after other abominations have arisen out of Australia. Some people said tikka masala pizza. That sounds delicious. But pumpkin and hummus? Yeah, I don't know about that. That originates from Brisbane. Absolutely unmanageable. I would try it, though. Not the hummus one with the pumpkin. But the orange chunks on it. I'd give it a shot. Starting things off, Rick Springfield has found out that he's actually gotten some brain damage from an incident 25 years ago. He was in Las Vegas on stage in 2000, performing, hit his head after falling about 25 feet, and then he says that wood fell down from somewhere, hit his head, and then his head hit the stage again. And at the time, the 75-year-old rocker now said he had just broken his wrist, he thought, but it turns out a MRI scan, full-body scan, found out that there was some brain damage incurred, and he's working on trying to repair that. There's a big North American tour happening, as well as UK legs, with the Counting Crows going on a tour with the Gaslight Anthem. Does it count as a North American tour officially? As we know, there are two rules, two criteria. There must be at least 2 dates in Canada, and one date has to be one other than Toronto or Vancouver. I do see Vancouver on there, but the other Canadian date, there are only 2, is Etobicoke, Ontario, meaning it just barely passes. And bad news for Imagine Dragons. They were set to be the band with the song that was the very first to be broadcast back to Earth from the moon, a song called Children of the Sky that they had made for the video game Starfield. But unfortunately, due to some technical issues, the lander being in the wrong location, only one of the radio antenna working, and running out of batteries, it was not successfully able to be broadcast back to Earth. But it does join several other recordings that have landed on the moon, including from artists like Elvis Presley, Jimi Hendrix, and more.
Wednesday.
King Charles, having put together a list of songs and put out by Apple Music that you can listen to it even as an introduction and everything. And I've got some of the audio. This is the very real and very accurate audio that you get to hear when you begin this playlist, available from Apple Music. Traveling the Commonwealth as a child, sometimes we would encounter sounds with rhythm and melody, and I would ask my mum, "Mummy, what is that sound I hear?" Sometimes I hear the servants making such sounds, and she would say, "You will address me as the Queen, and those sounds are music." I was fascinated, and I have since learned that the Commonwealth, and indeed the world, is full of music. I hear you can even listen to it on apples these days. Isn't technology brilliant? Recently, I've also learned that one may pair music with something called dancing. I can't wait to learn more. Without further ado, let us listen to my playlist, The King's Killer Mix for Figureheads of State.
Hey Alexa, play the Steve Reeve podcast.
It's that time, and nearly time actually, for the final Black Sabbath show ever, happening later on this summer in July. It's going to see the return of every original member: guitarist Tony Iommi, bassist Geezer Butler, drummer Bill Ward, and of course Ozzy at the fore. And it's all taking place in Birmingham, their hometown. Tom Morello has recently spoken about just how entirely excited and honored he is to be taking the role of musical director of this final show ever, as well as fun things like he's going to be able to join back up with his high school band that he had with Adam Jones of Tool, as well as with Billy Corgan, and they're playing together for the first time ever at the show for, an actual audience. That's so cool. Iron Maiden in the news again because they've got a new celebration of their entire career and catalog coming out in the version, or in the form of a visual book called Infinite Dreams. And it's expected to release in the fall, though no actual pre-orders are open yet. They are still talking very highly about some of the things that are going to be included in there. Bassist Steve Harris is giving the foreword, and also managed to be the one to dig up a bunch of old materials, props, and the like. New photographs of old things we've never seen, old photographs of new stuff then that we still have never seen should be included in there. And Cyndi Lauper extending the final leg of her Girls Just Want to Have Fun farewell tour, calling it a North American tour, however, only 2 Canadian dates, Toronto in July, as well as Vancouver in August. Who is stealing these heavy-ass metal statues in Edmonton? I would be curious to know. Far from the first person to be wondering, but so a couple weeks ago, a statue of Emily Murphy, a pioneer in women's rights regard, but also a very controversial figure in terms of her thoughts on race and eugenics, it was stolen from the Edmonton River Valley, leaving only cleanly cut feet behind it. I mean, like, machine precise, just like a sharp line left behind, just shoes. And now, a much lesser known statue of a little boy playing along with a girl and a dog in Ambleside Park in Edmonton, I guess, has been yoinked, just the one part of the statue. But again, leaving only these very clean-cut feet behind and nothing else but shavings. What's a step weirder is that this statue, in this statue's case, it's already a replica of the original statue that was apparently stolen from the same location several years ago. So that one's already been out there in the wild, and now another one is? Maybe we should be low-jacking these things. Or at least, I don't know, like somebody glue a tile tag to them or something.
Transmission over. Want more Steve? New podcast episodes happen every Friday, or just tune into the Steve Reeve Show. Weekday mornings starting at 5:30 a.m. on 100.5 Cruz FM.